Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online.
Stay tuned, as this story has the potential to reshape the political landscape in the UK. A major political scandal erupted in Westminster this morning, sending shockwaves throughout the nation. Nigel Farage has launched a fierce attack on Prime Minister Keir Starmer, accusing him of undermining the very foundations of democracy. What transpired? The crucial local elections, originally scheduled for May 2025, have been unexpectedly postponed, not just for a few months, but potentially until 2026 or even 2027. This decision has left political circles in disbelief, and now everyone is questioning whether this is a necessary reform or a calculated power grab by the Labour Party. The next election site.
Well, it's been a huge couple of weeks for Reform UK. We are in the news all the time. In some opinion polls, we're now above Labour, in others above the Conservatives. What's for certain is we now have three parties polling somewhere in the 20s, and we're the ones on the up. Now look, you'd have read about Elon Musk, and is he going to give us a load of money? And then yesterday, Nick Candy, the big property developer, known by some as Holly Valence's husband, it's a bit unfair, but it's true. Nick joined us yesterday as our treasurer, and we're going to raise money. Some people say, well, you know what? If the big money guys are coming in, I don't need to do anything. Let me tell you this. If we're going to build a people's army that beat the establishment, that give us in a few years' time the kind of government we need to turn round the decline in this country.
In an official statement from Reform UK, the situation is intensifying. The party describes the postponement as a calculated attack on areas where it is gaining traction. Local government minister Jim McMahon provided the official rationale, stating that councils in regions like Essex, Kent and Sussex are undergoing significant restructuring. He explained that some councils are merging while others are being dissolved, and these reforms need to be finalised before the elections. However, the plot thickens. These regions are key battlegrounds in the fight for reform in the UK. Is it merely a coincidence that the delays coincide with Labour's most pressing challenges? Farage is convinced that this is no accident.
Don't just think Elon or Nick Candy are going to save us. Think, what can I do to join a movement that is really on the march, really on a roll? So I urge you, if you want change, if you want to see economic decline, societal decline turned around, and goodness me, I do, and I'm sure you do as well, come and join us. Go to the website here right now. It's 25 quid. It's nothing. You know, it's not much more than the price of a packet of fags these days, or a round of pints of Guinness. So think about it. We can't do it without you. This needs to be a huge mass movement. Tories have failed us completely, betrayed us completely. Labour are utterly hopeless. You all know the country's going down the tubes. Please join us. Get involved. Let's make this happen.
Farage describes it as a desperate bid to cling to power, and he is not alone in this sentiment. Let's explore the reasons behind the election postponement, its potential political ramifications, and how it fuels allegations of dictatorship. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK and a staunch critic of the current political establishment, does not hold back in his remarks. He firmly asserts that the Labour Party's decision to delay the elections is a blatant power grab that cannot be overlooked. Farage contends that the long-standing dominance of the two traditional parties, Labour and Conservative, is crumbling under the weight of their own failures, leading them to desperately try to retain control. He believes the old guard is in a state of panic, realizing that their time is running out. People are beginning to see the truth, and the moment of reckoning is fast approaching. Furthermore, Farage accused the Labour Party of adopting tactics from the American Democrats, claiming they use democracy as a facade while secretly undermining its foundations.
There is no justification, none, for taking this action, and all right-minded people should be condemning this sort of violence. People in this country have a right to be safe, and yet we've seen Muslim communities targeted, attacks on mosques, other minority communities singled out, Nazi salutes in the street, attacks on the police, wanton violence alongside racist rhetoric. So no, I won't shy away from calling it what it is: far-right thuggery. To those who feel targeted because of the colour of your skin or your faith, I know how frightening this must be.
To many, this action calls into question the credibility of Labour's commitments. The implications extend far beyond a single election cycle. This is not merely a clash between Labour and Reform UK or between Farage and Starmer. It concerns the future of democracy in the UK. Postponing the elections, even for technical reasons, establishes a troubling precedent. Critics argue that it erodes public trust in the system, leaving voters feeling powerless. With rising accusations of dictatorship, the potential damage to Labour's reputation could be substantial. Conversely, Labour supporters contend that this is a matter of responsible governance. They argue that rushing elections amid council reforms could result in greater chaos rather than improvements. The key question remains: who will the public trust? Farage's passionate rhetoric resonates with many disillusioned voters, while Labour's promises of stability and progress attract those weary of political turmoil.
Good evening. Are we living in a Keir Starmer dictatorship? Rumours were swirling that Labour was going to cancel the local elections in England.
Why aren't they all going ahead?
And I would say, even before the white paper has been published,
maybe there's a problem with the line. Why aren't they going ahead, Minister?
Well, at the moment, the assumption is that elections are going ahead. However, it's usual in a process of reorganisation that when a council makes a request for reorganisation, if there are elections taking place to a council that it essentially won't exist within the term of those elections, then you hold off the elections and you elect to a shadow body, and the shadow body basically is a form of the new councils that will follow.
And now we appear to have confirmation on this. Some local elections due to take place in May next year might now be delayed until 2027. Labour says that they want to postpone them because they're restructuring the councils. Some might not exist in a couple of years' time.
He vehemently dismissed the Labour Party's explanations, labelling them as nothing more than a convenient excuse to postpone the elections while the ruling party panics over potential significant losses. These are bold and pointed statements that resonate with many voters. It's important to note that in Essex, Kent and Sussex, there is a growing wave of discontent with Labour's policies. Rising living costs and unresolved local issues provide fertile ground for reform in the UK, and Labour cannot simply ignore this. Veteran MP Harriet Harman, on the other hand, described Reform UK as a threat to democracy, claiming that Farage's rhetoric is merely dangerous populism. However, Yusuf, the chairman of Reform UK, did not hold back and responded fiercely, sharply criticising Starmer. This confrontation intensifies the situation and prompts everyone to consider the future of the political landscape.
So these local elections were seen as a referendum on Keir Starmer's government. He's currently the most unpopular Prime Minister of modern times, with an approval rating of somewhere in the region of -61. And this graph actually shows just how quickly his popularity has nosedived. He is sinking like the Titanic, and Labour are fearful of a monumental kicking in May. Angela Rayner has tried to spin this. She says this is all part of devolution, and she's giving power back to the communities. Well, Reform MP Rupert Lowe struck back, stating the bleeding obvious. You don't give power back to communities by cancelling elections, Angela.
Yusuf vehemently accused Starmer of despotic behaviour, asserting that he was deliberately targeting regions where Labour anticipated a significant defeat in the upcoming elections. This is not democracy, "It's a massive manipulation," he exclaimed, highlighting the escalating tension and the high stakes involved. Both parties are attempting to position themselves as champions of democracy while simultaneously hurling accusations at each other for undermining it. In response to the criticism, Angela Rayner introduced a new Labour Party publication on devolution in England, which she described as a pivotal moment for Britain. Rayner clearly articulated her stance. Labour aims to return power to the people. The book outlines ambitious plans to shift control from Whitehall to local communities, which she claims will not only stimulate economic growth, but also enhance living standards, ensuring stability in a country that has faced years of turmoil. "We want to empower local councils to determine their own future," she stated. However, critics quickly pointed out the glaring contradiction. How can Labour advocate for community empowerment while postponing elections that would provide these communities with a vital voice?
This is unbelievably rich coming from Labour. Over the weekend, Labour's very own Baroness Harriet Harman was all over the media, saying that Nigel Farage and Reform were a threat to democracy.
Well, I think people should be very concerned about Reform because they're not just a threat to individual parties, but I actually think they're a threat to democracy because they are offering easy answers.
And now they are set to, apparently, cancel local elections in Essex, Hertfordshire, Kent, Lancashire and Sussex. The cynic in me would say this: Labour are tanking. Starmer's handling of the summer disorder, his freezing of pensioners, crippling of farmers, relentless desire to give your money, taxpayers' money, away abroad, which included another 50 million quid to Syria yesterday, the Lord Ali Sleaze and Donergate fiasco, Ed Miliband's big green revolution, and frankly, his total lack of personality.
Looking ahead, it is clear that the stakes have never been higher. Will these election delays have detrimental effects on Labour, potentially boosting the popularity of Reform UK? Or will Labour's vision for devolution in England ultimately gain the trust of voters? This situation impacts not only politics but also the very foundation of British democracy. Are we witnessing essential reforms aimed at improving governance? Or is this a calculated power grab to safeguard Labour's interests? Let's take a step back for a moment. This is not merely a political struggle between Labour and Reform UK. It represents a direct challenge to the voice of the British people. Many voters perceive the postponement of elections, even under the guise of administrative reforms, as a betrayal. For decades, Britain has taken pride in being a beacon of democracy, where every citizen has the right to hold their leaders accountable through regular elections. We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.